On the morning of April 7, 2026, a social media post from the President of the United States appeared online, containing a specific and lethal threat. It read, "A whole civilization will die tonight." The parameters of the ultimatum were rigid. Washington gave Tehran until 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to commercial traffic. If the deadline passed, the U.S. military would begin the destruction of Iran's power grids and infrastructure bridges. The declaration triggered immediate global panic. The Pope condemned the threat as a violation of international law, while U.S. Democrats moved to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove the president from office. The economic shock was instantaneous. This chart shows the market reaction, with Brent crude oil spiking to $110 a barrel. That panic hit consumers immediately. This secondary line shows average U.S. gasoline surging past $4. Inside Iran, the reality on the ground was one of mobilization. Civilians answered government calls to form human shields, linking arms in front of the power plants and bridges targeted by the American ultimatum. As the clock moved toward 8 p.m., the world stood on the brink of a wide-scale conflict. To see how Washington arrived at this 90-minute margin of error, we have to look back at the decisions made 5 weeks earlier. The conflict began in February 2026 with the launch of a joint U.S.-Israeli military offensive named Operation Epic Fury. Initial strikes targeted Iran's most sensitive infrastructure. Within hours, missiles and aircraft had hit a series of nuclear and missile installations across the country. The offensive also executed high-profile leadership strikes, resulting in the assassination of the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, and several senior aides. However, a gap emerged between the military action and the political goal. Washington demanded the total collapse of the regime, yet the U.S. president explicitly refused to deploy ground troops or engage in a long-term conflict. This strategy contrasted with the objective in Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sought the total dismantling of the Iranian state and the triggering of internal disorder, regardless of the level of force required. This approach relies on a strategic assumption that air power alone can achieve a political transition. While strikes can destroy concrete infrastructure, they do not account for the continued control of a state governing 90 million people. Iran bypassed the American military advantage by striking where its opponents were most vulnerable. They launched a series of attacks against oil and gas production facilities across the Gulf states, including this petrochemical complex in Saudi Arabia. Then they utilized their primary point of leverage. This map highlights the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow naval choke point that serves as the exit for regional energy exports. By enacting a blockade on this waterway, Iran effectively trapped 20 financial markets rallied, oil prices dropped, and hostages were released. The threat of civilizational collapse was temporarily lifted. But the ceasefire arrived with cracks already visible. While Israel supported the terms regarding Iran, it explicitly excluded Lebanon from the deal, ensuring the war against Hezbollah would continue. The underlying conflict between the U.S. and Iran persists. Washington remains committed to the removal of the Iranian leadership, yet it continues to reject the ground troop deployment that such a transition would likely require. This timeline shows the scale of the reprieve. The agreement provides a 14-day window for negotiations, but it contains no clear diplomatic exit for either side. Brinksmanship and ultimatums can force a temporary halt to violence, but they do not reconcile opposing war aims. The world was saved by a 90-minute margin, but the clock on a total regional collapse has simply been reset.